right. Hello, hello, hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Science Friday's Mission Control Live. I'm Sandy Roberts, the Sci-Fi Education Program Manager, joining you from Northwest New Jersey. Today I'm in New York City. What am I saying? I'm actually in New York today. Thank you so much for joining us, no matter where you are. Speaking of which, I want to know, where are you joining us from today? If you're signed into a YouTube account, you can join us in the chat to the right side or below this video and let us know where you're watching from today, because we would really love to know. If you don't know us, as I'm trying to arrange my monitor, my apologies. If you don't know us, Science Friday is your one-stop shop for reliable and relatable science news. We're really well known for our weekly science radio show, broadcast every week on Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern. You can listen to us live each week on your local radio station or by visiting us at sciencefriday.com and clicking the listen bar at the top of our page. But of course, we're so much more. When you visit our page, you'll see a variety of articles and educational activities and community experiences for those who love STEM. I'm really glad that you joined us today for our Down to Earth Mission Control Live. We've hosted these each week in October, so you can go to the Down to Earth website at sciencefriday.com/down to earth to view the recordings of the previous talks that we've had. So feel free to check that out while you are settling in. There's also a bunch of great design challenges there that you can check out. Before we get started, I just want to give you a couple of quick reminders. Science Friday is committed to providing a welcoming and harassment-free environment for members of all ethnicities, ages, genders, sexual orientations, physical abilities, national origin, beliefs, and any other dimension of diversity. And since we believe in providing clear expectations as a necessary part of building a respectful community, here are the basics. Be supportive and respectful when speaking with one another or when asking questions in the chat. Share generously and listen closely. You can add your thoughts whatever you want in the chat, even if they aren't strictly a question for the guest. Do try to stay on topic. We're here to discuss space science and all things related. And we do reserve the right to remove anyone who engages in demeaning, discriminatory, or harassing behavior today. So, I don't know, my Science Friday kids, they're a pretty good bunch. All right, great. Thank you for sticking with me. With that said, it is time to welcome onto our virtual stage our guest for today's live stream. I'd like to introduce Dr. Julia Badger. Hello.
Hi.
So, Dr. Julia Badger is the Autonomy and Vehicle Systems Manager, VSM, Systems Manager for the Gateway Program at the NASA Johnson Space Center. She also serves as the Autonomous Systems Technical Discipline Lead for JSC and has served as the Robonaut Project Manager. She's responsible for the autonomous control system specification and design for the Gateway, as well as playing a leading role in driving autonomous systems, technology research, and development for human spaceflight. Julia has a BS from Purdue, an MS and PhD from Caltech, all in mechanical engineering. Thank you so much for being here with your very impressive resume.
Thank you. I'm so pleased to be here.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do? Because that sounds very big, and I struggle to put that in context.
Absolutely. So I'm an engineer at the Johnson Space Center, and I play with robots. Pretty much is the quick part of my job. I have a picture here of one of my favorite robots. His name is Robonaut. He's standing face to face with a suited astronaut because the idea behind Robonaut was to try to do the same types of tasks as dexterous as we could, or as much finger ability as a suited astronaut can have with a robot. The idea is that those tasks, like setting up for spacewalks, can be dangerous, they can be dull, and we wanted to know if we could relieve the astronaut from some of those dull tasks. So Robonaut was our attempt to do so. So we were able to, with Robonaut, send it into space. We sent it to the International Space Station and had it work on the space station doing a lot of different things. Here's a picture here of it taking air measurements out of a filter. So basically, it's trying to measure how dirty that filter is and whether that filter needs to be changed. It's one of the jobs the astronauts have to do on Saturday mornings, and they hate it. It's kind of like your chores, cleaning up and doing the dishes, that sort of thing. Astronauts have to check air velocity out of their filters, out of their air conditioning system. So we had Robonaut doing lots of these types of things. We really wanted to see what it would be like for it to be a caretaker for a human spacecraft. We eventually sent up legs for Robonaut. You see it here with one of the astronauts who did tremendous amount of robot surgery in zero gravity to add another 15 joints, I think, to the Robonaut itself. And we were able to do that and have it do some work both on the ground and on orbit. Because we're talking about down to earth today, I wanted to make the good point that just because we had the robot on the International Space Station doesn't mean we didn't have lots more here on Earth. And we'll talk probably as we go forward on just the different ways that the technology that we developed for this space robot has been affecting really technology and robotics worldwide here on Earth. But this is our robot family as it stood a few years ago. A lot of the things that we're doing, NASA's mission is not just to do technology for space, but it's do technology for the benefit of all mankind. So some of the things that we do come back down and help everybody on Earth establish more robotic or different types of technologies. Actually, some of ours has been assistive technologies like gloves that can help people who have not don't have enough grasp strength, or their muscles in their hands aren't as good. So some of that technology actually helps people very directly in that. But what we're doing right now is thinking about how that research helps us in our Artemis program. And this is a picture of Gateway, which is what I work on today. In Gateway, we're basically making a robot out of Gateway. It should be able to tend itself for up to 3 weeks without any communication with the ground. Part of that will be how we have robots both outside. You see the Canada arm that will be part of Gateway on the outside there. And you'll also have robots inside and taking care of Gateway when there's no people on board, which will happen most of the time. We'll have about 10 months per year with the Gateway uncrewed. And so robots will play a significant role in caretaking for our lunar space station. And
That
that's
is amazing. Wow. Um, yeah, I guess I didn't think about Gateway being unmanned for so long. Folks, if you have questions for Dr. Julia Badger, please make sure you put them in the chat. We want to make sure we answer as many of your questions as we possibly can today. In the meantime, I want to start with asking, the word autonomous is used in your title a lot.
Mhm.
And you were talking about how there aren't going to be people on Gateway Station all the time. What does autonomous mean and why is that important?
Yeah, so the word autonomous or autonomy, if you look it up, it means independence from. And so it's important for us to have these capabilities that we can operate our spacecraft independent from earthbound control. As we're thinking about going to Mars, the time delay for any communication to go there or back takes about 40 minutes round trip. And sometimes there's times when the Mars and the moon, or sorry, Mars and Earth have the sun in between them, and we can't talk directly at all. And so that happens for about 3 weeks every so often. So it's really important that once we send crew there, that they have the capabilities locally, that they can be independent from mission control, be able to execute their mission at that time. Also, from a perspective of how we're doing the moon program, Artemis program right now, which is our main focus, we are doing it different than we did Apollo. We're not just sending a crew that go and then they bring everything with them and then they bring it all back after they're done checking out the rocks and all the fun stuff on the moon. We're actually making it sustainable. So the Gateway will be in orbit around the moon. There will be like rovers and probably even a habitat at some point on the moon. And this is all practice for when we go to Mars, and it takes 9 months to come home, right? So we want to make sure that we can do the things we need to do, stay when we need to, so that we can eventually have that Martian exploration. And robots and autonomy are a key part of that.
That's amazing. And it's such a good point of like when something is so far away in space, we can't just, it's not like just giving someone a phone call or texting someone,
Right.
right?
Yep.
There's, it's a much more complicated process.
Yep.
Um, so obviously you have been working in robotics for quite some time and you've worked with some of the most amazing robots out there. What do you think has been the biggest innovation in robotics to take place during your career?
I think that so the ability, there's two, I would say. So one is that things shrunk, right? So we are now able to buy cheap sensors that are small and they do incredible things. And then the kind of corollary to that is that processing expanded. So we can now do a tremendous amount of processing. So when we get sensors that are small but now giving us an awful lot of data, we can go and process them. And part of what you see when you hear about like machine learning and artificial intelligence, it is because of those two things that we now have more data and we can then process that data. And machine learning and artificial intelligence are essentially using that data to go do something cool. So the combination of all of those things has absolutely been the biggest innovation in robotics and these types of autonomous like cars and those sorts of things in my career.
And maybe just kind of jumping on that, can you explain to our young scientists out there, what do you mean by machine learning, by AI? Because I think people have ideas of what that means, but
Yeah.
maybe they aren't based in the real science.
And I will tell everyone that even the people who work in the field have different ideas on what those names mean. So if you're confused, don't feel alone. Everybody is. But machine learning is essentially a word for saying I'm taking a bunch of data and I am using unbiased computer processing and skills. I'm giving it some sort of criteria as a person. And then that computer is just going to go crunch on those numbers and come up with something. What it comes up with is not usually a model, it's a set of connections. And we use that set of connections, sometimes rightly, sometimes wrongly, to correlate what's going on over here to what we asked for. So if I said, I have a bunch of umbrellas and I want to know if I have a blue umbrella if it's raining out, and I just gave tons and tons of pictures of people with blue umbrellas and the computer could go and say whether it was raining or not. It could come up with a weather forecast. It'd probably be wrong. But that's what machine learning does, right? You give it data, it crunches on the connections, and it spits out the answer that you tried to connect it with.
That's really interesting. And that kind of leads me to my next question. And remember, folks, if you are getting ideas as we're talking about this, put it in the chat. But what came to my mind is AI has, of course, been in the news everywhere. What do you think will be the next big important breakthrough in robotics that may be coming up in the near future, or maybe the not so near future?
So what we need, I'll tell you what we need. I don't know what's coming because I can't predict the future. But I think what the most important breakthrough that we need is a small and strong actuation. So we're going to need portable power sources that are not heavy. And then we're going to need to be able to do interactions with the environment in a way that is also not heavy. So you'll see robots that have electric motors that need batteries and batteries are heavy. Or you'll have hydraulics, which, needs this whole back of pumps and water and that sort of thing. And so and they can be loud and heavy. Or you can have a gas engine. Some of them are great. They carry that on their back. That's also heavy. And so we need some way to kind of shrink that power generation, that force generation on the environment so that we can do more mobile and more kind of get around on things. One of the examples, the picture I showed, there was a walking robot. Her name is Valkyrie. She's Robonaut's cousin. She usually plugged in so that we can get enough power to have her carry her own upper body and walk in 1G in our gravity, right? It does go down if I want to send her to the moon, for example. There's less gravity, so less power to have her walk around. But I think that's one of the biggest breakthroughs we really want to see is how we can get a lot more effort from smaller mass, from smaller weight.
That's really interesting. And I know like that kind of battery technology would be useful here on Earth too for
Oh
so
yeah,
many different applications. I mean,
so
I'm just
much.
thinking, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, everything from my cell phone could be more productive to my car could run on those batteries. So
right.
that's really interesting. Um, since we have a lot of young engineers and scientists hopefuls here in the audience today, could you tell us a little bit if one of them wants to pursue a career in robotics, what suggestions would you give them? What kind of plan should they be making?
Well, so I have three future engineers myself who also really enjoy robotics, all of them. I think that the best thing that you can do is to get into teams of people who solve problems as early as you can. And there's a lot of opportunities for that. I know my children have done the robotics teams. There's a lot of them out there. There's VEX, there's BEST, there's FIRST, there's all kinds of different opportunities for that. There's also things that other types of teams that you can be on that solve problems, or even being in a school play, anything where you really have to work in a team and work together to solve something with your brain is the greatest thing that you can possibly do, because that's all being engineer is. And I will tell you, there are lots of different types of engineers and a lot of different people who are good at, there's some that are good at math, there's some that are good at drawing, there's some that are good at communicating, right? So there's a lot of different opportunities in fields that are technical. For robots themselves, I think one of my favorite things about robots is that it is so interdisciplinary, which means you have to have people who know about mechanical things, electrical things. You need to have computer science folks, people who can program. You'll want to have folks who are really good at understanding how humans interact with things, that can write and make sure that those interactions are worthwhile. So there's just a lot of different folks who end up needing their expertise to be applied to an integrated system like a robot.
That, yeah. Like when you think about how many different people must go into a program like the one that you run and how many different areas of expertise, that's actually pretty exciting to think of the kind of teamwork that's necessary there. And since we're speaking about teamwork and what our young learners can do, um, we are already past 2 o'clock, so I want to make sure before we wrap up today that we introduce an educator who's written this week's Down to Earth Design Challenge, Jennifer Swanson. She is an educator, children's book author, and the creator and co-host of Solve It for Kids, a science podcast. She's based in Jacksonville, Florida.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for being here today, Jennifer. And you have a really exciting challenge for all the kids to try over the next week. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
I do. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited because I love space and robots, right? Like robots are amazing. In fact, I got to meet Valkyrie, if I can give my little awesome thing. She was so amazing, so amazing. Okay, so let me just present let's see, present, share screen. There we go. There we go. Can you guys see? Yes? Okay. So this one is actually a robots for a sustainable future. So what you're doing for this is you're going to learn about the Robonauts and the robot helpers in space. There's a bunch of videos that you can go through, and make sure you click on all of these highlighted red words here, because we have lots of more information on there. You're going to learn about robots who help with wind turbine system services, like they help clean the turbines there. And finally, you're going to learn a little bit about the Canada arm and how you move it autonomously. Remember, we talked about autonomously. And we're going to show a video of that down here. And then your challenge is to learn how to maneuver a robotic arm, which is not as easy as you would think. You're going to use these cup tower challenge. This is a challenge that Sandy had on before, but we're going to kind of extend it and adapt it a little bit more. And so it's going to be interesting for you to see how these work. Again, it's just like Dr. Julia said, you need to have teamwork in order to have all of the robots working together, or excuse me, all of you together to get the robot to work and grab the cup. And then at the bottom, we have some more things for you, resources for you to learn more. And we have of course, the NGSS standards for all the teachers out there, and we have some career suggestions. So, let's see. What happened?
Yeah, I guess we lost the page. That's okay. Maybe you could just tell us kind of what you were thinking.
I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Yeah, I think. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Did you not see my screen share?
Yeah, we did, and then it dropped out. So a little technical glitch, but maybe you can just kind of, yeah.
I'm sorry about that. Okay. So basically the way that the challenge goes is that we're going to talk all about robots, how they're used in space with the Canadarm and all of these different things, but also how they're used on Earth here to help they help clean off the wind turbine rotors and all of these different things. And the system will the rest of the challenges you will go through, and you will be able to create your own kind of robot autonomous challenge. So you can see if you can move these cups around, and that will show you how difficult it is for people to actually use these robots. And then at the bottom, of course, we'll have some more resources that you can use.
That sounds like a lot of fun. You can get a couple friends together maybe for Halloween, folks, and give this as a good challenge.
Exactly. It'll be tons of fun.
Now, I know, Jen, you and Dr. Julia Badger have met before. Can you tell us a little bit about the last conversation that you had?
Yes, actually, I'm thrilled to say we had Dr. Julia on our podcast, Solve It for Kids Science Podcast. And actually, that episode dropped this week. So if you want to learn a little bit more about what she's doing, helping create a robot babysitter for Gateway, then you can take a listen to that episode. And we also, Dr. Julia has a challenge for you on that episode. So enjoy doing that too.
Even more fun. You got me thinking as you were talking about your resource, Jen, and maybe Dr. Julia, you can give us some insight on this too. Talking about how you have to work together as a team to move like these arms or to move the robots that aren't autonomous. What kind of training goes into that? I mean, how do they do that? How do they coordinate to do that, especially in space? Are they talking to Earth? Are they in? I'm just fascinated by what kind of technology is necessary for that.
Yeah, that was actually one of the major things that we did with Robonaut was figure out how we could do that effectively, particularly because it was far away and we couldn't just be the robot. So there's this thing called teleoperation where you can wear things maybe that you basically try to move as the robot. And there's a lot of different technology. There's some avatar technology that there's been recently developed that you can kind of be a robot and help do those sorts of moving. There's also where you can just click, 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 and program it to do things. You can have it do that like on assembly lines, obviously. You have some sort of move that it always does, and that is just a click interface. What we try to do is be a little bit more supervisory, where we said, well, we want to program the robot to do a task for me, and we want it to kind of think about that task and tell us if it's successful, and if it's not successful, maybe try a different strategy. We built a framework called affordance templates, which is essentially a way to standardize ways that you would interact with the environment with a robot, to try to make it easier for the human operators to be trained to do that. We actually went and trained people. We sent the robot to Australia, and we said, hey, if you could do this with oil and gas, which is what we did it with space, and we said, here's our robot and here's our tools. Here, maybe if you could apply that to an oil and gas platform, like a test bed that you have for that. They were able to do so we trained them for 2 weeks, and they were able to do enough of a demo so they could show their CEO a week later. So it was actually a pretty successful thing.
So for those kids out there wondering, maybe being able to play video games and use VR could be a useful skill if you want to control robotics in space someday.
Totally is.
Exactly.
I agree.
Yes. You have the job that I would have loved to have had as a kid, Dr. Julia.
Me too.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, isn't that great? Isn't that great? Remember, folks, you can join our community lab and we can keep this conversation going there. Jen will be joining us all week at the community lab to answer your questions. And before we wrap up today, because gosh, we're just about there already, I want to give you one more chance to kind of share your final thoughts with our learners. First, we'll go with Dr. Julia and then Jen.
Well, I'm really excited I got to come and speak with y'all today. Robots are pretty amazing. My last little bit is our Robonaut that flew on space. He actually just found a new home at the National Air and Space Museum, the Udvar Hazy Annex out in Dulles, Virginia, right next to his ride to space, the Discovery shuttle. He got inducted into the Smithsonian yesterday, so he'll be on display for as long as that agreement lasts, hopefully forever. So please go and see him.
Oh,
that's exciting.
That's fabulous. I was just there in May for one of my books, so I just missed him. So I'll have to go back and take my picture standing next to that and hold it with my picture next to Valkyrie, right? Like,
yeah.
For all the teachers out there, thank you for getting your kids excited about STEM. And for kids, be curious, right? And always explore. And you know, you can do anything. So don't think you can't do robots. You could do all, you know, like Dr. Julie said, there's so many different ways that you could work on robots. So go out there and have fun.
And I also want to mention for those of you that maybe are looking for other ways that you can be involved in STEM, Jen is an author. Not only is she a scientist, but she is also an author. She's taken all of that wonderful knowledge and now she shares it with kids like you. So many different ways to involve yourself in this amazing technology and these amazing discoveries. I just want to thank you both so much for being here today. Please make sure, everybody, that you go to the Science Friday Down to Earth website at sciencefriday.com/down-to-earth. We've got all of the previous sessions there that you can view as recordings. There are 4 really exciting down-to-earth missions that you can complete, including our robotics mission today. Definitely take a look at those. And educators, if you are wondering, like you have questions about best ways to use all this stuff in the classroom, take a look because we've got some Zoom sessions next week coming up where we can meet, talk it out, and get your ideas and feedback. So thank you, everybody, for being here today. Bye to Dr. Julia and to Jen Swanson. I really appreciate you joining us. And I appreciate everybody who showed up today on YouTube and watched along with us. I hope that you come back for our next program and join us in the community lounge so we can keep this conversation going and learn everything that we can possibly learn about robotics. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Bye. Have a wonderful Science Friday.